Good morning, everybody. Day 2 here at CPAC. I'm here with Congressman Ronny Jackson. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Appreciate you
here at Townhall.
Yep.
So to get the kind of the big thing out of the way, right now the big news is Ukraine being attacked by Russia right now. You were just recently in Munich with the delegation over there. Did you think it would? Did you, after that whole meeting and what you guys were talking about, did you ever think it would get this bad?
Well, I knew it was going to get this bad after the meeting. The first thing I noticed or learned when we went over there is what I suspected is that NATO was not together on this. They're fractured. Joe Biden has failed to be a leader internationally and to bring Europe and NATO together as one voice against Putin. And it was pretty obvious over there that everyone wasn't on the same page. Everyone didn't share the same sense of urgency with the sanctions and some of the other stuff that we could have been doing to stop this. So it was pretty obvious at that point that I think that Putin was going to do it, and and I didn't know exactly if it would happen, while we were there, shortly after we left, but I knew it was going to happen soon. And I've kind of felt all along that he was going to try to take the whole country, because this is just an unbelievable window of opportunity for Putin to have a leader like Joe Biden in office right now. He's so weak, he's so ineffective, he's somewhat incoherent. He portrays weakness on the international stage. Afghanistan was a complete debacle. We abandoned our allies there, put them in bad positions, and all that did was embolden our adversaries and let our adversaries know that that we weren't gonna fight hard, we weren't gonna push back, and we weren't gonna stick with our allies. And that's led us to where we're at today. That's led the whole world to see us as weak, and for our adversaries to see this as a window of opportunity that won't last for long.
And so, understandably, Americans are weary about getting involved in kind of any sort of way, just because we spent 20 years in the Middle East, and then the disastrous withdrawal. But with the sanctions that are coming up, and the president saying that there's a price that we will kind of have to pay in some form, whether it's with dollars, to stand up for our values. But why should Americans at least be aware of what's going on in Ukraine? Because isn't it true that in some way it is going to affect us? And not to say that we should get involved militarily.
It's going to affect us. We went from the Trump era, where we were completely energy independent in this country. We were a net exporter of oil and gas, and Biden has shut that down. Right? He has he's canceled the Keystone XL pipeline here and other pipelines here. He's forbidden drilling on federal lands, shut down oil production in this country. Simultaneously, what happened is we're importing like 200,000 barrels of oil a day now from Russia. We are actually paying the Russians. We are supporting their economy. We have actually financed their efforts in Ukraine to some extent with our actions during the Biden administration. But what's going to happen now is we get into this tit for tat with Russia, and we're in this situation where we're not energy independent anymore. We're going to start paying a lot of money for our fuel. So our gas prices, our natural gas prices, are going to go through the roof, and so there's going to be a big, not to mention the fact that you can expect that at some point, if we push back at this particular point now that he's already in Ukraine, there's going to be cyber attacks and things of that nature directed at us in retaliation. So yeah, I think that there will be some bad things on the horizon that could have been avoided if Joe Biden would have done this right from the start instead of getting us to where we're at now. So we're going to have to fight back and do the best we can to make sure that we secure our economy, secure our country. But Joe Biden's put us in a really bad position to start with on all of this.
Do you think there's any hope that we're not going to be just in a bigger hole than we were when this all started?
We're going to be in a much worse spot when this is over with, because Ukraine wasn't a NATO country, but it was somewhat of a barrier between the NATO countries and Russia. And now, Ukraine is essentially going to be part of Russia, which means it's right on the border of Poland and Hungary and Slovakia and these other NATO countries that are right there. They're going to be right on their doorstep. So it's just going to be a border separating Russian troops from NATO troops now. They'll be looking right across the border at each other. If you look at Belarus and you assume that they're already part of the Russian efforts, which they are, right? Then the same thing happens to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the Baltic states. They too are right on the border with the Russians now. So it's really increased the tensions worldwide. It's increased the tensions between Russia and NATO, and we're going to be building up troops in those countries, and the Russians are going to be building up troops on the border, and it's a powder keg. It sets us up in a bad position where something could likely happen that would draw us into having to defend a NATO country, right? We're not going to go in and defend Ukraine. They're not a NATO country, but we're in a position right now where we're going to be toe-to-toe with Russia and may have to ultimately defend one of these NATO countries that we have commitments to. And it's just not good for us. It's not good for our national security.
And so you mentioned the border.
Yeah.
In that last question, so we're going to actually switch to our southern border.
Okay.
And you and I, we've been down there multiple times in all different areas. Yeah. I've seen that it's gotten it just continues to get worse. We already got over 150,000 encounters in the month of January alone,
Yep.
which is significantly more than January of last year.
Right.
I mean, do you have any hope if Republicans take back Congress? Do you have any hope that if Republicans are in power to at least scale back some of the things that the Biden administration has put forth so that it stops encouraging this massive surge that we've seen throughout the entire last year?
Absolutely. I think it depends on what happens in November. We're going to get the House of Representatives back. It depends on what kind of majority we get. Do we get a big majority or just a really small majority? I think we're going to get a big majority back. That'll help. If we get the Senate back and we have the Senate and the House, then yes, we will absolutely be able to do stuff that will box Joe Biden and the radicals in his administration that have allowed our border to get out of control intentionally. They're doing this on purpose. We'll be able to put them in their box because we'll be able to control the purse strings and the appropriations and the money, and we can shut some of the stuff off and not fund some of their efforts, some of the departments that they need to get money to for their agenda. We can shut some of that down if we don't get our borders straightened out. But the border's an absolute disaster right now. I mean, the thing that irritates me more than anything is that Joe Biden has become, part of the logistical chain of the cartel. I mean, he essentially works for the cartel now. The cartel bring people from, all over the world to our southern border, and they take care of all the logistics of getting them up there, and then as soon as they get to the border, they just usher them across, and then we take them over, and we get them a plane, a train, an automobile, we get them food, we get them, whatever they need. We send them out all over our country, and we are literally providing the last part of the logistics to get these people illegally into our country. And they're doing this because they think at some point they're going to get the right to vote. And they are assuming that they're going to vote as Democrats. And that's a big part of what they're doing. But what they're doing is they're allowing massive amounts of drugs to cross our border. And, we've got methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine crossing our border in record numbers. And the reason is because we have Customs and Border Protection at the point of entry, and they have Border Patrol between. We don't have the Border Patrol between anymore because all the Border Patrol agents are at the Customs and Border Protection at the points of entry trying to help process all of these huge numbers of people, fill out their paperwork, change diapers, pass out juice boxes, accompany people to the hospital, things of that. They're not patrolling the border. The border's unpatrolled. The drugs are coming across in massive amounts. You've seen the record number of fentanyl that's being seized. And what this is going to do is going to destroy an entire generation of American children that are going to be addicted to this or die from these drugs. And it's happening right now, and it's going to get worse as each year goes on. And it can hang that all around Joe Biden's neck. He did this.
And so, if Republicans, take back the House, what are some of the legislative priorities that you will be pushing for to get through if you guys do retain the majority outside of the border that we just discussed?
Not related to the border. So,
not related.
I'll be working on issues related to the border, of course, to secure our border, to build the wall, to fix the immigration system, to secure our border. So I'll be working on that. Other things I'll work on, I'm going to be working on election integrity. We need to put in law a system that protects our elections nationwide, right? So that they're protected from fraud, so people can believe when they vote, their vote counts, and that the elections are fair. So we'll be working on that. I'm going to work on trying to turn back this woke social agenda that the left has. They're destroying our country with it right now. It's all they think about. Their Green New Deal is destroying us right now. Their attack on oil and gas, their attack on American farmers and ranchers. These are all things that I'm going to try to undermine and put into a legislative form so that future presidents or President Biden over the next couple of years of his administration can't continue to destroy our country with executive order.
Okay. Congressman Ronny Jackson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll be all here at Week at CPAC.